Alright guys, just thought I'd make this little video here talking about this little topic I had on my mind, and I hope you're all okay and not getting into any trouble. Just thinking about how weed is different after psychedelics, and hearing about how a lot of people, as well as myself, notice change in the effects of cannabis after psychedelic use. For different people it varies how much of a psychedelic they use until cannabis starts changing its effects. For me it took quite a few years, but obviously it was always sort of amplified from the first few trips, because weed in itself is I guess a psychedelic and can open your mind to topics that, say, someone who's never experienced like a different state of consciousness, smoking weed to them is like, whoa, fucking blast them out the brain. But for me, like recently, in the past year or two, ever since I've had ego death or ego death like experiences, which usually are brought about by smoking cannabis near the peak, which back in the day I had no idea how deep the rabbit hole goes with psychedelics, so I'd just smoke weed willy-nilly when I was tripping balls, and then wonder why I have these like weird mystical ego death experiences of infinity, which used to absolutely blag my head until I started to wrap my head around it with subsequent trips and research. But yeah, basically for me, after my 4-ACO DMT trip, which is probably like the most mind-warping mystical experience I've ever had, and if you've not seen that, it's on the personal story playlist on the channel, where I put the other trip reports that I've done in there. And yeah, that was absolutely mental. I had all the hallmarks of the mystical experiences that people talk about, like being guided by this entity, sacred geometry, like encompassing my entire vision, complete loss of self. And then after that I was smoking weed, and it just, every time I'd smoke weed, even if it was a little bit, I mean, I used to be a daily smoker, and then when I started doing it after that, it had just propelled me back into that sort of psychedelic headspace, but not in a good way, in like a paranoid way, in sort of an anxious, neurotic manner, in the way I was perceiving the experience, rather than how uplifted I was when I was actually on the 4-ACO. And then we just started changing for me, and I just stopped smoking it as much, because it just used to make me really paranoid about infinity and metaphysical stuff, when usually I'm very accepting and happy to gain all these insights through psychedelics. But the weed was sort of twisting them, which was weird. I think maybe perhaps it's some part of my psyche trying to get me off smoking weed every day, because I don't think it was good for me. But for some people it works, which is sound. But for me, I don't think it was at all, especially with regards to like laziness and just general like brain fog that can give me, and just also contemplating too much about reality can burn you out big time, and you need to cool down sometimes, bro. But unfortunately I couldn't cool down with a biff or anything, because weed was just sending me absolutely mental. But lately, I think my mental health has like reached a nice baseline. So smoking weed now on the odd occasion when I do with my mates, or just decide to pick some up, I actually enjoy it a lot more now, and I don't really get as many paranoid thoughts. But I do still get one thing with weed for me is the increased heart rate always ends up giving me a fat dose of anxiety, and it usually blags my head to fuck, and I start thinking about really dark, depraved stuff. It's really strange. Obviously there's some element of like the shadow coming out in when I'm smoking weed as well, maybe things that the human ego doesn't want to think about and accept, blah blah blah, because again, weed can be very psychedelic and contemplative and spiritual. But it seems, looking on Reddit and that, you can see a lot of people, they also have similar experiences with weed being different after psychedelics. And a lot of you guys have said this to me on the Instagram. Great way to plug it right now. Look at the description. So basically, people have talked to me on there about it, and I've related to a lot of you guys on there, which is really sick. You're all proper buzzing heads. I'd love to talk to more of you as well, because I can't be too good. Talk me, lad. Sometimes I just waffle on. I'm actually quite like, I'm in like that post joint afterglow, so I'm a bit like a bit slower than usual, because I've just been lately, since I've been enjoying weed, I've just been doing it when I go out walking or go out with my dog or something, which is what I enjoy the most. Or maybe having it before bed and then watching a film, which is cool. But I try not to just use it all the time, but it can be very easy to, because I think I do have like an addictive personality when it comes to weed, because I just think like, oh, it's there, well, I may as well just keep smoking it all the time. This video's devolved into just chatting shit about weed, but getting back to like the original topic, I'm curious about the mechanism, about how it works. I think because maybe once you start shifting your consciousness into these like profound reality altering states, that you don't just take the state from weed for granted. You realise how much of an altered state it is, and some of the weird experiences that you can go through on that as well. I mean, you can take edibles and have visuals. Some people report that. So yeah, there's no wonder. And psychedelics put you more in tune with yourself, especially a sense of time and temporality, your body. They make you more introspective, and they give you a sense of what the ego is. And people who really pay attention to this, they can develop a sort of like reverse tolerance, so the less of the substance will get you just as high or even more high than it did when you're using it before. Then that's definitely the case with me. I used to be able to smoke bare weed. I remember I went to Amsterdam with my mates, two mates, like a few years ago, in 2018, and then that just it put like a bottle cap on my tolerance to weed, and I was like, oh, I just couldn't get high anymore, because we were just, well, I was literally just fucking smoking it everywhere. It was mad. But then I really like cut it down, and then now I literally just have a few drags on like these joints, and then sometimes I'm having like these weird sort of ego loss sensations. And I guess some people say that LSD and DMT leaves its footprint in your system, even in a chemical way, and perhaps THC can somehow trigger these same pathways to those highs that let you re-enter that headspace in a way. But yeah, it's all just a theory, isn't it? And no one actually really knows. I guess more research should be done into this. But yeah, in the description, whoa, fucking losing my head here. In the comment section, don't forget to tell me if you've had any experiences like this when you've been used psychedelics and then smoked weed, or vice versa, with how maybe you've been smoking weed on psychedelics and it's been an absolute train wreck. Because I think it's really 50-50 for me. I don't really bother when I'm on psychedelics smoking weed anymore, because it's always just took it in a strange angle, and oftentimes I find that my experience of infinity and higher states and loss of self is much more calming and pure when it's not altered by, say, weed or another substance like ketamine, which also affects the way you perceive like these insights on psychedelics. But obviously it's all different from person to person, which is the fascinating thing about psychedelic medicine. So yeah, that was a little video made. Definitely get back to making more videos this week. I was just having a few days off to stare at the wall and that, but we'll be definitely getting back on the trip reports and obviously the bizarre UFO sightings, which I'm buzzing about. I might start doing some other weird stuff like that, like Wendigo sightings or Bigfoot sightings. They might be quite funny. So yeah, if you'd like to see more shit like that, let me know and I'll hook you up.